like if something has happened and all of a sudden he's like, plunging a knife in between your eyes and stopping before he does it. And you're like, dude, like that was crazy.
Why did you do
Where
that?
did,
Yeah.
where did it come from? What just happened?
Yeah.
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Ballistic Advantage, Crimson Trace, Rossi, Range Ready, Ruger, and SDS Imports. All right, welcome in to Gun Talk Nation. Today on the show, a longtime buddy of ours, one of the coolest Puerto Rican Jewish knife fighters I know, Rob Cabrera. Welcome in, man.
Hey, brother. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Well, you and I have had this conversation before, but we are fairly gun centric over here at Gun Talk Media. Go figure. But pretty much everyone here and everyone who listens and watches our stuff, I think, carries knives and perhaps beyond that has an interest in knives. Maybe some people get tactical with their interest in knives, but you're one of my go-to resources when it comes to talking about not just like the tactical use of a knife fighting would be, I guess, the sexy, easy phrase. But knife designing, metallurgy, we can go down any number of rabbit holes, but I wanted to get you back on some of our content to just kind of talk to the people and shoot the shit.
Yeah, you guys, thank you so much again. And you guys have always been cool enough to, well, actually, we met 5 years ago doing the knife school
Mm-hmm.
bit that we did, which I hope your watchers enjoyed and the people who follow, Gun Talk.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
good point. If you can go back and search, I think if you search Rob Cabrera, you're going to
I think
find
it
it
does
in our
show up. Yeah.
channel. And
Yeah.
Rob, I think I don't know where to start, so I'll just start with people carry knives, and I think if they're defensive minded, maybe they maybe they're concealed carry, maybe they're gun enthusiasts, maybe they carry a gun and then probably most of them carry a knife and they probably think like, oh, this is like a secondary thing that I could
Mhm.
use. But I know for me, I wouldn't consider myself very knowledgeable as far as using a knife for defensive purposes. I mean, what's your background? How did you get into it?
Um, Unlike most people, for me, it was youth and running around doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. I was raised in a military family. I didn't go into the military. I ended up going a whole nother route because I lost my parents. Uh, Out on the street, that was kind of the beginning of it. And then over the years, I was always in contact with it because of the martial arts, whether it was, Ake Jiu-Jitsu or Wing Chun or, Filipino martial arts or whatever it was. I was always connected to the weapon. It was always my favorite, whether it was knives or swords or whatever. And did it throughout the 90s. And then right around 2000, when I picked up a gig and moved to Puerto Rico, I actually started teaching law enforcement and military. And that's when it started really picking up traction, where I really began to see the value in what it was, because there I was with people who are on the wall and
Mm-hmm.
they took what I taught and they were able to use it and they valued it and they saw value in what I taught. So therefore it gave me, I said, well, you know what? I want to do more of this. I want to help as much as I can. And what ended up happening is the more that I did it, the more that I realized that, again, gunfighters are very good at gunfighting. They're very good at it. But up until a lot of these guys, where you saw the gunfighters getting involved with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, that began to give them an awareness of range, and they started to understand range. So therefore, a lot of them who saw what I did and saw how I taught put a lot more value in this idea of like, okay, wait a minute. I recognize that there's skill sets with a gun, and I recognize that there's skill sets with rolling with people. So there must be something else to this that I don't understand. And that's one really cool thing is where a lot of these door kickers and guys that are on the blue line have been able to transmit information to the public and say, hey, listen, all of you civilian guys out there, you need to put a little bit more value on the knife because there's a lot more to it than you think.
Well, it gives you options, and we like options. It's also can be any kind of training, even though it can be serious. It could
Mhm.
also be fun and rewarding to learn a new skill. Um, I mean, for people listening and they go, well, that's kind of an interesting idea. I mean, as far as like a knife as a defensive tool, where do they start for something like that? Because I know a lot of people want to start with the gear. They want to go like,
Yep.
which knife? Which knife do I need? Which I get that question all the time. Which gun? And you're like,
Yeah.
I mean that I don't know if this is true for knives, but it's kind of like which gun is like, I mean, it matters, but it kind of doesn't matter. There's more of a training issue there.
Yeah, it really does matter. Some systems focus a little bit more on different things. You'll find that, at least for me, the Filipinos have been probably the most informative in anything within Southeast Asia. This would also include CLAT or anything like that. They're very, very knife oriented, whether that would be a regular, straight edge or a karambit or long blade or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much weapons focused. You can kind of start reaching out there. There's a lot of other eclectic systems within the Chinese stuff and things like that. What I would recommend initially is a very good understanding of mechanics, a very good understanding of pressure. So there's a lot of crossover systems and there's a lot of cross training that you can do to begin to help that. Boxing is a very good one. Most people don't understand and know that traditional boxing, as we know it now, basically came from the Philippines. So there's a lot
Okay.
of mechanics built into traditional boxing. Everybody's heard of Manny Pacquiao, but what a
Sure.
lot of people don't know about Manny Pacquiao comes from a long line of escrimadores. These are people that in the Philippines fight with sticks. And his background and his family lineage, there's actually several escrimadores in there. And if they've handled a stick, I guarantee you they've handled a knife. So boxing is a really good start if you don't necessarily have a Filipino martial arts facility within reach of where you're at. A good boxing gym is a great place to start. Um, Also, Muay Thai. Muay Thai is a great place as well. Anything that's going to teach you really good stand-up footwork and your
Mm-hmm.
ability to be able to cover ground is going to be very helpful. Um, and then at some point in time, you're gonna have to come in contact with somebody who's going to give you and put you on the road to understanding how to deal with the knife. I've noticed that over my past 30 years of more of dealing with it, the biggest thing that it really comes down to, I learned from you guys. I learned from gun guys that the biggest thing is you need to get to that weapon. You need to be able to get it presented into the confrontation as soon as possible. I learned that from you guys. So over the past 10 years, my main focus has been on deployment.
Okay.
um, all this really cool movement and all this crap is great, but if I can't get to my weapon and be able to inject it into the conversation, it's kind of all moot.
Well, it's funny. I was just having a similar conversation with John Correa from Active Self Protection recently, and talking about he analyzes gunfights, real gunfights, video footage, and his one of his takes is the first one to get a meaningful hit in a gunfight is typically the winner. And,
Yep.
doesn't have to be a, you know, square between the eyes hit, but a meaningful hit and the first one there. So be
Yep.
first, be fast.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Same exact thing with the knife on deployment. The only difference, well, actually, no different. You know, movement, moving targets harder to hit.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm capable of calculating a strategic movement and deployment at the same time, and then being able to score on a vital target or a target that's going to heavily incapacitate my opponent's ability to hurt me, whether that be lethally or unlethally, is going to be advantageous. So that's kind of, I'm thankful that I've had to spend the last decade or more running with more gun guys because I was able to stand back and watch guys train and go, wow, wait a minute, there's something here that I'm learning from it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of been the godsend of being connected with a lot of gun people over the past decade.
All right. So, Rob, one of the things that I find is a lot of people carry folding knives. After this little break, let's talk about folders versus fixed blade. For when you only need one shot, there's the Rossi Brawler. You can throw down on anything from rattlesnakes to medium-sized game thanks to the Brawler's ability to fire either 45 Colt or 410 shot shell. Yep, it's a handgun, and it's a big one. Go check it out at rossiusa.com. The Brawler, a rubber grip, iron sight, carbon steel, 410 bore, or 45 Colt. And the MSRP on this sucker is only $257. It's very cool. It even has a pick rail on top if you want to put an optic on there. rossiusa.com. Stag Arms, known for quality AR-15s, they're now making a bolt action. It's called the Stag Arms Pursuit, and they have several different flavors. The one that I'm kind of eyeing right now is the 18-inch barrel 308 Sporter Fluted OD Green Edition. Great look, really cool, modern sporting, kind of a modern bolt action sporting gun. I think you could use this for a lot of different things, but to appreciate what they've done, go check them out, stagarms.com. Tactical shotguns. There's a lot of different varieties and flavors. Tokarev USA by SDS Imports. Go check it out, sdsimports.com. Look up the Tokarev shotguns. TAR 12 M81. This is the one I'm looking at. It's kind of, if the way I would describe it to a buddy, he said, what the heck is that? Kind of an AR-15 style 12 gauge shotgun. So it does have a detachable magazine. It's semi-auto, has flip-up sights, has the controls similar to an AR, stock, all that stuff. So it's going to feel very familiar in your hands. But it's a 12 gauge, and you can even get bigger magazines, even up to capacities of 20 rounds of 12 gauge, going boom, 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 semi-auto. Very cool. SDSimports.com is where you go for that. So Rob, I'm kind of I'll call myself knife curious. I like knives. I'm not super knowledgeable because I know people who are super knowledgeable, but folders versus fixed for I guess an everyday carry situation. I mean, how does one choose?
Wow, that's a really good question, Ryan. It's kind of, I'll start out with a preface. Basically, it's like ice cream. Like me, myself, I carry two. I carry two knives on me. I carry a folder for utility and a fixed blade for in case I get in trouble. But also it's the preface of two is one is none.
Yep.
So for me, it's kind of wild because as a maker, folding knives for me, just because of the way I was raised, folding knives are about work. Folding knives are work. Folding knives are, I got stuff to do. You know, whether I'm, cutting bale and twine or cutting tape or scratching the gasket off of a head gasket or something off of a car that I'm working on or whatever. Folding knives are work. Now, over the last, I don't know, 15 years, that's kind of changed. Folders have become very Gucci, for lack of a better word. Very Gucci, very bling-ish. When you've got guys that can get away with making $1,500, $3,000 folders, that's really moving up into a level. Yeah, go ahead, just giggle. It is because it is funny. But then again, on the other hand, I'm very practical. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say I don't have a tactical folder. Okay, I do have a tactical folder because there are times if I do step out with the wife or something like that, I don't necessarily, I want to have something as discreet as possible. Maybe
just
I
like
don't
guns,
want
you gotta have options depending on what you're wearing and the situation and all that.
Yep. But for me, for to go, a fixed blade is ideal. As if you and I have kind of gotten together a couple of times, I can deploy pretty fast with a fixed
Guys,
blade.
let me just tell you, it's scary being around Rob sometimes. He wants to show you and teach you and tell you about this, but he's like, so, I'm just, if something has happened and all of a sudden he's plunging a knife in between your eyes and stopping before he does it. And you're like, dude, that was crazy.
Why did you do that?
Where did it come from? What just happened?
Yeah. And and I think you and I got into a great conversation when we shot the knife school. And you guys, it was so hard for me to like kind of relax and take it easy and just chill. But the hard part about it is they're like, Rob, why are you so intense when you have to talk about the subject? Is because the funny thing is if knife stuff is not like a gun. It's not. It's not like I can be 30 paces from you and be able to shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
You're very up close and personal, and I'm very big on not giving people bad information. Like for me, the killer is false security. That's a killer, man, because that makes you complacent. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I tell anyone that starts knife combat, or I hate to say it, I'm going to quote from a movie called Spartan. There is no knife fighting. There's only knife killing. Make no mistake about it. And I try to make that serious to people. Hell, I've had people walk out of my classes, just because of the seriousness of it. I've had people faint. I've had people walk out of the class, because you talk about anatomics and you talk about how to stop people and you start getting graphic about dropping blood pressure. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, can you, put a levity into this? And I'm like, I can't, because think about this. When you look at it from a position of safety, if I have to use my knife, they're already in my circle. They are in my circle.
Right. They're
And
close enough for you
maybe,
to touch them with it. So, yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
And if you're a gun carrier and you're having to deploy a knife, that means your primary has something's happened and you're in a bad situation. So I've always had this huge fear. I don't want to pad too much of this, but I had a martial arts instructor when I first started teaching. He told me, he said, make sure you have faith in everything that you trust, or I mean everything that you teach, and be so cautious of what you teach, because someone is going to take what you're teaching and they're going to go out and use it
mm-hmm.
to protect themselves. And if they fail or if something happens and you didn't teach them properly, or you gave them something that gave them a false sense of security, it could be lethal. So back to the point, both there's plenty out there for anyone's price range. There's so many different selections out there.
Yeah.
Another thing too is try to make sure that you keep at least one. If you carry two, try to keep at least one on your weak side. Should something happen and you need to be able to, like what I like doing is more likely I'll keep my folding knife. I'll keep it on my left hand side, and that's how I get my reps for just mechanical. I'll
Your
open,
offhand.
yep. I'll use it to open boxes. I'll use a lot of people at the time they'll think I'm left-handed because I'll use my left hand to open boxes or just
Mm-hmm.
utility stuff. And like, why are you doing that? Well, because I'm getting reps. I'm getting reps on my my I hate to say weak hand, but my non-dominant hand. And
Yeah.
then I'll put my fixed blade on my right side, almost like a gunfighter would carry it on their right side.
Yeah.
Um, but they're all good. Just keep in mind that with a folder, you have to deal with different types of mechanisms. Like if you carry, let's just say a lockback, I carry a lockback for my utility on this side. It is not going to be very useful in a tactical sense. And using the word tactical appropriately, it is
Mm-hmm.
not going to be tactical. If you want to have something that's going to be more useful in that sense, but also still a good utilitarian knife, maybe you want to move to a flipper. Maybe you want to go to some sort of a gravity, or maybe you want to go to a thumb stud, something that's got a little bit more, tactical
Easy to
use.
deploy it, right?
Yeah, easier deployment. If that's how your mind wants to go, you want to be thinking of those things. Nowadays, you've got the autos, but then again, if you make a choice for an auto, as you and I well know, that's really not going to be much of a box opening kind of thing,
Well, and look, I have a couple and they're fun and I do carry them, but they're kind of, this is a funny thing. I'm going to say it out loud because I got an auto on me right now. They're not really great for anything. Like it's not a great utility, like you said, scraping a gasket, opening a box. They're not great for that.
Yeah,
They're not great for a defensive use.
yeah,
So they're great for like playing with and like looking cool or whatever, I guess. I mean, they're
yeah.
fun, but yeah.
I had I don't know if probably 2 or 3 months ago, I had a conversation with a law enforcement officer, a friend of mine down in he actually works in middle Georgia, and he was telling me about an issue situation that they had with an individual who was attacked. He deployed his auto, and the person, the attacker, got to his dominant hand while he was deploying the auto, and
Uh-oh.
they're wrestling for the knife. Well, as they're wrestling for the knife, well, he deploys it and he gets run into a wall at the same exact time that the auto deploys. So the
Mm-hmm.
auto doesn't spring all the way out.
It like disengages.
It disengages and he's trying to reactuate it. And for some reason, it would not reactuate.
Well, now you've got a decent little blunt device to use to
That's,
hit this guy.
he says that's actually how he got the attacker off of. He sort of bludgeoned him over the head with the auto.
Yeah, yeah. Like
with the
you just use what you got.
that's it.
The little
That's
glass
it.
breaker or something like that.
Yep, that's about what it was. He said it had some sort of a stud
Yep.
on the pommel side of it. So he
Yeah.
started hitting the dude over the head with it once he got his hand clear, and eventually the guy ran off. So that, I don't know. You can look at that for what it's worth. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm like you. I think autos are fun. I think they're cool. Sorry if you hear him up there. Um, I think they're cool. They're fun, but you got to understand that everything has its place. There's a reason why fixed blades are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a revolver's not as fun as a semi-auto. You see where I'm going with this?
Oh yeah, I was kind of thinking that when we were talking about this, how it compares to guns, and I don't want to say a fixed blade is a revolver, but it is in certain ways, perhaps. Pretty simple, pretty
Yep.
dependable. I don't mean, depending on someone's viewpoint on this, I wouldn't say either one is a boring choice because
Oh no,
simple and dependable is not a bad thing, you
no,
know?
absolutely not. It's kind of where you want. It's where it's actually really boils down to personal use, like where you're at, what you're doing.
Mhm.
Like I've got friends of mine that work in maritime. They carry a knife on them all the time, and it's a fixed blade. Why? Because they look at it like, well, if somebody gets a line tangled up around them or something like that, they need something that's going to be immediate right there. And
Yeah,
it's all thought process, and everybody's got their own way of looking at it. But when you start segmenting, and I don't want to sound like a know-it-all by any stretch of the imagination, but when you start segmenting, you have to really look at, like when you're picking out a pistol, you have to start looking at what your uses are
yeah,
and how you want to apply it. And again, a folder is not a bad choice on your non-dominant side. You just have to take into consideration that remember, depreciation of skill under stress. You're not going to be
mhm,
that disposable thumb is not going to be very useful if you've got a head full of adrenaline, you
yeah,
know.
for sure.
So you got to take all that into consideration.
Rob, you're also a knife designer, manufacturing guy. What's happening lately? What are some of the cool things or maybe trends or things that you're liking, you're seeing that you've been doing that our listeners ought to be looking for, like either certain styles of designs or certain um maybe materials that are kind of cool being used in the last several years? What do you think?
Um, there has been an awful lot in the way of like handle material. Um, your phenolics are still the strongest. Your The one thing that's really changed is, and again, I'm not a steel snob, but this Magna Cut thing has kind of come in. I've had a chance to play with that. It's okay. It's pretty cool. The problem that I have is I'm like, that's kind of like the gold standard of blade steels. I'm blue collar by nature, so I don't.
Yeah.
I look at the value against what I pay to what I'm going to get out of it. And it seems like it's more of a niche market. The whole concept of it, your average everyday Joe is not going to, he's not going to want to spend an extra $75 to $100 on a knife just because you're using Magna Cut. And it is great steel. It's
Mhm.
pretty interesting. I haven't used it on anything that I personally carry, but I've made some stuff out of it. It's very good. It's very good. I just don't want to say, again, for me, it's value.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna pay that much more for that. One thing we do have is just there's been a recent flood of makers in the industry. That's the one thing that is new. The industry is just heavily inundated with makers now. Everybody and their brother, wants to be a knife maker, and that kind
Dude,
of brought
Fortune
up.
Fire. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go get a big heavy hammer and get a bag
Yep.
of Kingsford charcoal, and we're gonna make some
Let's,
knives.
yeah, let's do it. It's that easy. It's that easy. And it gets into a conversation that we had earlier, which was the one thing. It's kind of been this blessing and a curse because if you notice, when you look at a forged and fire competition, if you pay very close attention to the attendants or who are there, normally they've got some dude from nowhere who's probably got a year's worth of experience. They got a novice and then they've got a master,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying anything about their setup or where the industry is going right now, but one thing I do miss, and I do know that's changing, is that as an industry, we're getting further away from our roots. We're getting away from the idea that this is a craft that is usually learned. And you are usually brought into it in an apprentice sense. That's where I think the industry is changing. Is that, yeah, great. It's cool because you could go to YouTube and learn the basics. You
Mhm.
can learn the basics from YouTube, but there's things that you're going to learn from a senior maker or from a master maker that YouTube can't teach you, and what that is honestly, it's humility. And that can't be learned over YouTube. You have to learn and understand that, when you're training with somebody like that, it's the same thing for martial arts. Yeah, you can learn a lot of stuff off of YouTube, but it's not the same as when you do something in front of somebody and tell you, no, do it again.
Right.
Or no, do it again, do it again, do it again. And what that's doing, what is it doing? It's engraving humility into you. If you have a good teacher, it is. I can name all the people I learned from.
Mhm.
I can name them. God rest his soul. John Graham was one of them, probably one of the greatest folder makers that ever lived. Probably one of the greatest grinders that ever lived. The master of compound grinding, as far as I'm concerned, John Graham. John Hutchison, Ryan Johnson, Darren Soroy, Chris Williams, people who poured into my life. They looked at my work and criticized it and, made me a better person for it. Just like I can talk about the people who I learned martial arts from, Rico Cortez, 200 Dianaldo, Guru, Ernie Lake, and I can go on and on. People who not only, it wasn't like I visited one seminar. I broke
Right.
bread with these people. I broke bread with these people. I've known them for decades. We've grown up together. We've gotten gray together. And in
Yep.
cases where like John, I lost a friend. I didn't just lose a mentor. I lost a friend.
Yeah, and it's a good point. The apprentice thing of learning a craft, because it's a craft. It's also an art, and
Yep.
there's the right way, and there's the creative part of it. There's just so many elements to it, and just the knife world is just a really cool world. Um, if you're, I mean, there's probably people listening to this are going, yeah, Ryan, well, I'm a knife nerd. I'm sure that we have some knife nerds in our
Mm-hmm.
listenership for sure. A lot of shooters like the Ruger Max 9 because it's a sweet spot in pistols. 9 millimeter, kind of small, holds a lot of ammo, but they've just released one that might be going under the radar. And this is the Ruger Max 9 with a 4-inch barrel, longer slide, longer barrel. Still very concealable because, that longer part is inside the holster, probably inside your waistband. But it's going to help the gun point a little better, a little bit more weight out front, a longer sight radius, helps you be a little bit more accurate. So go check it out, Ruger.com. It's the new Max 9 in the 4-inch version. And of course, it has all the other features that the Max 9 has, but go check it out at Ruger.com. Crimson Trace, known for lasers, right? That's what we all think of. They've got the laser guard, laser grip, even a laser saddle that will attach to those shorty shotguns to help you aim it. And why do we keep talking about this? Well, there's a lot of advantages to a weapon mounted laser. One being you can actually have target focused shooting. The laser is on your target and you look at that laser. You don't have to stare at the gun, stare at the bad guy, stare at the gun, stare at the bad guy. So it can be a little bit quicker. There's also unconventional shooting positions where the laser is on it, even if you don't have the gun perfectly up to your face with, sights aligned and all that stuff. It's just another option for you. It certainly doesn't replace your iron sights, don't get me wrong, but it's another option. And we've tested it for several years and found that it really can help a lot of people shoot a little bit better. You can learn more over at crimsontrace.com. RangeReadyStudios.com is where you go to find out about our 2024 class schedule. We are running classes here at Range Ready, and we have a bunch of new ones that we're going to be releasing soon. Now, these classes do fill up pretty quickly because they're special. I mean, you get 2 days, you get all the ammo, you get the gun, it's all included in the package. There's those types of experiences that are available here. So if you want to be the first to find out about it, sign up for the email. Go to rangereadystudios.com and sign up for our email alerts, and you'll be notified when we post these classes. So if they want to hear more, see more of what you're up to, like you got some websites, social pages, where should they go?
Yeah, you can find me. I think I'm recently making a switch because I'm pulling my social media away from me and turning it over to where I can be more creative and push stuff over to that. I believe I still have a Philo Blade Works
Yeah.
IG, and I
Philo
believe I
Blade
still have.
Works. Okay.
Yep, yeah. I think the that one is being focused more on me, where I'm kind of sharing. I'm going to start sharing more about my adventures just in knife making in general and the things that I'm into because what's happened is I've got a lot of other interests that nobody even know about. Like nobody even knows about. It's like I'm into cars. I'm into my son plays guitar, so therefore I'm into guitar. I
Yeah.
play a little, but I'm really into the building of guitars. That's kind of what my thing
You're one of these
is.
guys that you can't help yourself. You're like, I think I can make that.
Dude, I hate to say it this way. I
Crazy.
hope you can bleep me out, but I love sexy shit. I
I
do.
know.
Whether it's guitars or knives or cars or guns or whatever, there's just something, cool about the shape and the way they're built. I love all that stuff. And there's some other things that we're going to be working on as well. The goon rules stuff is my interpretation of Filipino martial arts. I got invited to do a couple of seminars last fall. I'm not doing too many seminars right now. I'm teaching mostly privately. Um, and there's going to be some more stuff coming out. Like I'm going to fire my podcast up again, but I'm unlike
Nice.
you
Good.
guys. Like in my case, I'm really wondering. Like I'm wondering what I want to talk about.
You can talk about
I'm
anything you
wondering.
want, man. I mean, you don't, it doesn't have to be one thing. I mean, you've got several interests, and I think that they overlap, right? I mean, there's a lot of people. It'd be in general. I'm going to stereotype, but it's probably skews more like male, right? We're going to talk about knives, and we're going to talk about cars. We're going to talk about guitars, knives, cars, and guitars. It almost works. I'm just
It
saying.
almost works. Well, I mean that too is I mean like another thing a lot of people don't know is faith plays a
Yep.
huge part. With me. I keep that kind of personal, but I'm okay with talking about it. Um, I love fine whiskey. But to be quite honest with you, I love talking to people about my story. I love
Mm-hmm.
encouraging people. I've come from you know, long, a lot of stuff in my past, and anybody I tell people that I'm a professional at picking my ass back up. That's pre- that's
A
pretty
lot of
much it.
practice. A lot of
Yeah, I got a lot of
practice.
practice. I got a lot of practice at it. So I get a lot of inspiration from you guys and a lot of other people, a lot of close friends of mine in the industry and places that do podcasts. Like I said, I've had my play at it, and the hard part for me is like I have so many interests. I have so many things
Mm-hmm.
that I enjoy doing. Like I love, like recently over the past 7 or 8 years, I've gotten into machining. I've gotten into learning machining, and that's awesome. It's so much fun. Even with my past as a surveyor, the technical aspects of it and the math and all that, that's right up my alley. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I just don't want to be pigeonholed, but I like to talk about so many things.
Yeah. That's the beauty of where the world we're in today, man.
Right.
You can put out content and see what sticks and see what people like. And I think
Yeah.
that we're in the we're kind of moving away from mass media. This is totally off topic, but it's still something I like to talk about. I think we're
Right.
moving away from mass media, and we've moved into a world of a mass of niche media. It's just like, dude, this is the guitars and bourbon show. This is the machining aftermarket parts for the auto world
Whatever.
show. Like, dude, it's amazing. There's so many,
Yeah,
which is kind of the beauty and the curse, because there's like 1 million podcasts. So if you're listening to this, thank you. You found us. Please
that's right.
subscribe, like,
And follow.
all that stuff. Follow us.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I agree with you. I agree
yeah,
with you.
man.
I wonder where it's, sometimes I wonder where it's going. And like I said, this is going to be the year where uh, I want to start, I want to, it's either I'm going to maintain the Goon Rules podcast, like just keep it going, but just talk about whatever I want. Cause it originally started out as kind of a self-defense podcast, but I looked at, for me, Goon is a lot of things. When I hear goon, I don't just hear like a thug or something like that. When I think of goon, I think of like blue collar people.
Mm,
I think of average folks, and that's what I am. I was, raised in upstate New York, blue collar family. Lost my parents at a very young age, orphaned. So I know what it is to knuckle, to crawl my way up and out of a hole, so that I can relate to things that blue collar people relate to. I love motorcycles, I love cars, I love guns, I love knives, I love combatives, I love making stuff. Because it's really not about any of those things. It's really about making a better me.
yeah, I like it, man. So any endless possibilities. You guys be sure to tune in for, and he also goes by many, many names. The Goon Rules, Philo.
Philo is my nickname.
So, but officially, Rob Cabrera, thanks for being with us, man.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's truly a pleasure, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Always fun to talk to interesting people, and obviously, you guys see Rob is one of those. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next time on Gun Talk Nation. To see all of Gun Talk's content, go to guntalk.com, guntalktv.com, or sign up for the Gun Talk newsletter.